Welcome, everyone. My name is Jim Lee, and I'm here with Rebecca Okamoto and Clarence Lowe. We're so excited to have y'all here because this guest is just an amazing trainer that I've had the pleasure of knowing for a few years here at SACE. And recently, we came back from the conference in STEM Connect. And there are so many things that I've heard positive from the attendees, and we thought it'd be great to have you share not only some great learnings from the program that people could glean from, but what was your experience like, Rebecca? What's it like to do something in person at a conference, and what were some of the observations?
First of all, hi everyone. I will say it's so rewarding to be able to be in person with people who want to learn and grow. And I am so passionate about helping people be seen, be heard, get recognized, which is what you, Jim, are also really focused on. So to be able to see people like instantly get aha moments and then apply right away is really rewarding because you can see the people thinking, I can do this. And I feel like they got to interact with so many different people from industries or role models that they could see their horizons opening and thinking, oh, maybe their idea, their potential, or their arc that they're on might have changed because of the conference.
Yeah, and you have such a sharp focus and a commitment to this audience. You're not someone that will take anything and everything as an opportunity to showcase your work. Where does that come from? Like, what is it about, this community that really drives you? And share a little bit about your past that really connects that together.
So what I'll tell you is I know I'm really passionate about helping people with something to say but struggle to say it. And I'm passionate about it because that was me. And I started my career as a very timid engineer, wondering when I was going to get fired. Somewhere along the way, someone told me, I think you're extraordinary, help me develop my skills.
Mm.
And other people taught me, it doesn't matter how smart you are if no one can understand you. So the reason why I love this community is I am a STEM background person. I climbed the ladder. And I call myself the champion of lost Einsteins.
Ah.
Super smart people who struggle to explain the value of their ideas and who therefore are not seen, heard, recognized, or rewarded. And when I learned certain techniques, it made all the difference in my career. So I just love to challenge our audience with what if the only thing that's stopping you is the fact that someone didn't teach you a better way to be clear? What if you are smart enough and strategic enough? The problem is you just don't sound strategic.
Mhm.
And the number of people who can, when they realize, oh, that's how I introduce myself. Oh, that's what it means, to own the room. That's how I should like say my name. They realize these little tiny things changes so many other big things for them in their career. I
There's a
love this
lot.
audience.
No, there's a lot of like connotation. You just said own the room, right?
Yeah.
And I've heard that phrase used many times over and over again. And a lot of workshops that talk about owning the room, but I have yet to have come from a conference where participants afterwards mentioned your name, and not that owning the room was so much about taking over and having authority in a room, but really having that presence, right? Having your voice heard. Share
Right.
a little bit more about like what does owning the room have? Because it can sound very intimidating for people.
Yeah. So for me, the problem with so many people from humble backgrounds, so it's not just Asians, not just women, it's just that we're told, like the first advice I got from my parents were like, when you start working, never raise your hand, never talk about yourself, let your work speak for you, and only compliment the team.
Yeah.
So of course I got promoted last in my peer group. And but then I just could not bring myself to compete with those voices where people, primarily in my case, men in manufacturing, just wanted to talk to be the first one for the vice president, and wave their hand. And I really struggled with how am I going to climb the ladder if nobody hears me, but I just can't bring myself to self promote, just relentlessly self promote, for the purposes of rising up.
Hmm.
What I learned is if you want to own the room, executive presence is much more about when I speak, everybody's going to listen. I'm not going to be the noisiest person. If someone interrupts me, I'll know how to handle it. But when I talk, I'm strategic. Everybody listens, and I've left my footprint. So that's what I want. I try to communicate in this workshop about owning the room, which is it's not about being the loudest person, but it is being about the most insightful person. And sometimes insight can be lost because I work with them on like tone of voice.
Hmm.
And sometimes we lose our impact. So it's like, hey, some of the littlest things, excuse me, things like that really damage our presence. So when we speak, we have command of our voice, we sound strategic, we say it, and then we end it, and then everybody keeps looking at us. But
Yeah.
that's what I love about this class is trying to reframe what it means and then not to be afraid of someone who mansplains or interrupts you. These are not problems for us.
Hmm. I think of like as you're sharing that a vision of um like white elephant gifts, where people package
Yeah.
gifts and sometimes the opposite, they're trying to make a gift look maybe more attractive than it really is, or on the flip side, understate the gift and then it's really something amazing inside. And I think what a lot of times if we're not giving the respect of what we have to say and the value to it as important and worthy it is, then people may not treat it or see it in that way. And it can really go by unimpacted. And I know for myself that there are a lot of things that I've said in that way, where later on, just a coworker, like 10 minutes later, said the exact same thing. And they got recognized and they got promoted or they were seen as a thought leader. And I'm frustrated, like, that's what I said. That's exactly what I said. But it's not what I said, but it's how I said it. And that's what I feel like I'm hearing from you.
Yes. So sometimes it's what I find it's true for many, many people, especially STEM background, is that we are strategic. The problem is we don't sound strategic. So part of what happens is we over explain and we lose our call it senior stakeholder their attention span.
Yeah.
So what I try to work with people is say like if there's a really specific thing you can do that grabs people's attention and then gets them to say, tell me more. So you get to say everything you want to say, but instead of forcing it on people and diluting your impact, you say it in a way that's insightful and they'll say like, "Oh my gosh, can we get more time with you?" So it's really about drawing people in. So it's like I work with so many people, so many people who really are strategic. They just didn't learn how to make their slide look strategic, how
Right.
to say it strategically or pitch that big picture. Or they say it, but then they use upspeak.
Uh-huh.
Excuse me, Jim, can I make a comment? And they don't realize that hedging words makes it easier. It like statistics show
Yeah.
that you will get interrupted more if you use hedge words before you just make your statement.
Uh, Fun fact, oh, I don't know how fun this is, but I learned that people in Australia that speak that way naturally do tend to get overpassed a lot of times just because of that cadence of how they speak. So it's learning to do things a lot more consciously in our habits, not necessarily just doing things because it feels natural.
Correct. Yeah. So I showed people or I gave them statistics, which is, for instance, there's like a study came from UC Berkeley.
Mhm.
Appearing confident is more important than being competent. So these things that you suspect are actually studied and are true. There's something called a Babel hypothesis, which is speaking more tends to be viewed highly or more positively than being insightful. And people who pick up political skills, this came from the University of Singapore, is that selling yourself is more important than actual performance. So there are all kinds of studies saying that your image and how you present yourself is more important. That's why I talk about executive presence in terms of owning the room. And how do you say it in a way that's, again, insightful, that grabs everybody's attention, and you're like, booyah, I own the room.
So you mentioned something about being a lost Einstein or lost Einsteins out there. Can you share maybe what that really is? And is there a corollary to all this
Is there a corollary
or a
to it?
connection?
Well,
Yeah.
I'll say that for the Asians, the statistics are, so we're like 6% of the US population, but we're overrepresented in the workforce. Like 12% of Asians
Hmm.
are in the workplace. According to the US Bureau of Labor and Statistics, we are
Hmm.
the highest educated group by far.
Hmm.
Over 50% have degrees, but we are the least likely to get promoted to the executive level, even in Silicon Valley, where it's like essentially half Asian versus whites.
Yeah.
White managers are 1.5 times more likely to get promoted than an Asian manager to the senior level. So a lost Einstein to me is someone who's just like, I am smart. I'm like delivering. I helped that guy, and that guy got promoted, and they're just struggling. Why? I'm lost. Why can't someone see the value of my ideas? So they either shut down or they move to another company. What I'll tell people, if you let them move to your other company, you know, um, you should either value your high contributors, or that person who moves to your next company, the next company could become your worst competitor, like your nightmare competitor, because that company might value what they have, and they can, and I've seen it, and I know people who got let go of their from their first company, went to the next company, took market share away from the original company. So,
So I'll share that. That was like a lot of my early career. I think
mm,
6 years. I came out of a college recruit program where, um, yeah, highly recruited, went out, did really well, but my manager did not think I was worthy of the job. And so, coming out of a program like that, they said it was almost like the equivalent of I had 5 years of work experience in 18 months, right? And what was amazing was like I didn't want to go anywhere. And there's a little bit of loyalty, right, in my culture of like staying with the company that hired you, but just not being valued. And then once I did look out in the workforce, like I was being offered twice as much money like just to come over, right? Amazing signing bonus as well as like, 20% in salary. And so I left and I took over a lot of the competitive market space and other members that were in the program left with me as well. So it was almost like one company trained all of us and then helped build their competitor in that space that we had. And I even remember though, then once I went there, like I kind of fell back into that space again where because I didn't know how to speak up and I didn't want to come off as being arrogant, I didn't share a lot of my thoughts and ideas, and I was passed up for promotion many times. And I went to another competitor, right? And then that company, paid me, 30% more, and I took all my clients then with them, right? And realistically, short term, that was very good. But for my career, it did nothing for me. I felt like
oh,
I was in this vicious cycle, right? Where I couldn't get promoted, but people continued to want me laterally because I brought clients with them. And so I look back and I imagine, like, what if I could learn how to speak? And on both sides of it, like being the Einstein that was lost, the impact that it had for the business. But on the flip side, for me as now being into the employer section as a manager, like I worked really hard to not let that happen to me. That every person that I hired, I trained, and I brought on felt valued. And I took time to listen to them, even though they didn't know how to speak. Like I worked on my listening skills to be able to pull out their information and then help them to frame it in a way that would be a lot easier for me to process and digest in a way. So, I think, hearing what you say is so valuable and maybe it's just something that isn't really touched upon because we don't see that, right? It becomes in the blind spot of our careers.
yeah, I will. can I share something?
Yeah,
I'm not sure if I can. Let me see if I can find it. So like real statistics about what the cost is of like not valuing your lost. Let me see if I can find it. Um, it just I have this thing that just shows, or it gives you a different perspective about the value of your lost Einsteins. I'm just trying to find it on my. Oh, okay. All right. So do I just share my screen?
yeah, go for it.
Okay, so this came from my critical thinking clinic where I was teaching people how to communicate.
And I
And
only see your desktop. Oh, there you go. Okay.
okay, so people who like under communicate, so they get shut down, like we talked about how to handle people who explain over you, how to handle getting interrupted, and then and if you don't speak up and you shut down, then you're considered an under communicator. And this study from Stanford said under communicators are 10 times more likely to be criticized in their leadership evaluations.
Hmm.
Okay, so then it's like multiply this across your company, and then you see all these studies. This one came from a Gallup study, but 68% of employees feel disengaged. Um, and out of that, 18% are actively disengaged. But still, year after year, these numbers still keep coming up. Like it doesn't mean anything. Disengagement numbers have been really high for a long time. So what I try to do is explain to people the problem with disengagement is, let's just say we were trying to win in the US soccer,
Okay.
right? So if you're playing soccer, you're trying to win a championship. So this is not just high school soccer, right? But 68% means that out of 11 players, 7 to 8 of your teammates are not playing to win. 18% means two of those teammates aren't even bothering to play, or maybe they're helping out the other team. So if you have lost Einsteins in your organization because they just got shut down and people talked over them and they're just like, why bother? Like, why bother if people keep interrupting me? The untapped, unrealized loss potential is gigantic. Um, so and your lost Einsteins just aren't Asians, for instance. They're anyone who's quiet, an introvert, a technical person sitting on a commercial team, anybody who gets talked over or interrupted, someone who views themselves as humble, someone whose English is a second language or third language, and they feel a little bit hesitant to jump in because they're not sure about their accent, for instance, someone who's the first or the only one. So I think that's what we need to realize, which is they'll multiply these problems with, I'll give you an example. This is just from women because it's been studied more, but it doesn't mean it's not true for other people. But women, they did a study that said, it showed up in the Washington Post. Women don't speak up as much as men until they're on a team of five, until four of the participants are women.
Mhm.
80% of the room has to be women for women to feel comfortable to speak up as much as the man in the room. That's a lost Einstein to me, because why are you being quiet?
Yeah.
So what can you do? So that's why I'm saying, hey, that's why we can teach different skills. You don't have to speak up as much as everybody else in the room, but when you speak, your speaking matters.
I imagine it's these dynamics, right? Where someone has perceived power, right? Where it's intimidating to share things because maybe it's what if I'm wrong, or what if they get upset at me, or there just isn't that feeling of safety to be able to share something publicly and openly. And sometimes when you share, it can feel like it's an extension of yourself. What would you say to those people that are concerned about being shut down and how they can overcome some of these challenges that they're holding them back?
I think there's two things. So one is sometimes it's just that you don't know how to position it to capture the room.
Hmm.
So that's why I teach people like how to capture the room, how to read and lead an executive audience, for instance. So then you realize, oh, wasn't that hard to read them? And I teach them like, hey, all you need to do is speak their language, and here's how you do it. So for all those nebulous classes, say step inside your shoes. I try to work with people to say, this is exactly how you step inside their shoes. This is what it means, and this is what your executive is looking for. When people realize all that mystery has been broken and they understand, oh, that's what they're looking for, they're much more confident in speaking up because they're like, I'm positive, I'm going to explain the value that they're looking for. There is another group, though, that maybe they have a lot of imposter syndrome or something, and they're very worried about that. I would say that they it's not a type of class that I would offer, but it's really learning how to like calm your nervous system down and how to position things differently. Maybe you probably have better classes, for instance, on doing that than I would. Because I do have some amount of clients that are just like, no matter what I do with them, they can't get over that hump of speaking up.
Yeah.
I work with most people who are more like, oh, that's I just didn't know how to say it. And then once you teach them, they're fine. So I'll turn that question back to you. What would
Yeah.
you do to the people, even when they have the tools, still struggle? What would you do with them?
Well, I think the more quieter folks that feel more timid come to mind. And I'm taking out any psychological or other type of trauma that they might have
Yeah,
had, right?
yeah.
But in general, there are those that can want to grab as much information before they speak, right? So when other people are speaking, they're listening and listening. And so then they're reprogramming their thoughts to the point where they never speak again, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's one of those things that they have to be okay sharing partially of what's in their
Oh,
mind,
very good.
allow other people to build on top of it. Just know that it's never going to be perfect when you speak in a way.
Oh, I could build on that then. So one of the things I tell people to do is I give them a framework and I'm like, start super easy, which is just practice by writing an email that's clear.
Hmm.
So just practice using the format until you feel good with the format. Then practice the format in one update with your boss and tell your boss what you're doing. Like, I'm
Yeah.
trying to be clearer. I'm trying to follow this framework. Can you give me feedback if I was clearer? So in a safer, so then the more you try something and the better it gets, then the more confident you get to try it with a bigger and bigger group.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about, what I've seen is like some people just want to just unload everything and just say it there versus learning to collaborate and work with other people. And then it becomes more of a solution that has been sourced together as a team versus just your thoughts, your opinion, and then it just becomes a little too binary, perhaps.
Yeah. And then I tell people, you know, the easiest way to know what the other person wants is say, like, hey, is this what you're looking for?
Yeah.
I used to, so part of my problem was I used to think if I had to, let's say Clarence is my boss, if I had to ask Clarence, is this what you're looking for? Somehow I failed the test and I
Yeah.
wasn't smart. So
Yeah.
then, therefore, I would rather say everything to prove to Clarence that I was smart versus just saying, Clarence, this is what you're looking for. No, I want A, B, and C. So instead of just giving him what he wants, I would guess. Um, even when I was very senior in my company, one of my last performance evaluations, the CEO of the business unit told me my emails were too wordy.
Mm.
And I'm like, seriously, I'm the highest level Asian American woman in the supply chain. And you're telling me you're criticizing my emails. And then he's like, well, what are you doing? I said, well, I want to show you that I've thought through this and I want, and I want to make sure you know I'm prepared. And he's like, oh my gosh, you wouldn't be at this level if I didn't already know you were smart and
Yeah.
you were prepared. So then I started making sure everything just could fit on one screen.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And then he was like a couple weeks later, oh my God, what did you do to fix it? And I said, I just did it so you could look at one screen. If you want to know more, you'd swipe up. If you didn't, you'd just delete it.
Yeah.
But I was so busy. So this is what many of us do.
Yeah.
We're so busy wanting to make sure we're smart. But they don't realize that the reason why they're in the room and the reason why they were asked to present is because we know they're smart. and because we know they're prepared. So you don't have to prove it to me. I already know it. So you give me all that information is unnecessary because I just need the big picture. So when you get over the fact that you have to give the details, then I teach you how to pitch the big picture. And it's as few as 3 pictures, it's as few as 5 sentences. You would be shocked at how simple it can be for an executive.
Well, they're busy, right? And I try to help people to understand, like, as you said, you're already in the room, you're smart, you're hired. Help them to give you permission to move forward, or help them to share something that you may not know have. But the whole idea is that make it easy for them to make decisions, which is also why, like, you got to like raise your hand to volunteer at times, because they're not always looking out of their 10 people on their team who had the best performance evaluations, who's killing it when it comes to certain metrics, and who's the one that had the best 360 evals. They literally want the one that's the most easiest, accessible, and someone that they want to work with in a way.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I think what we don't realize when we're below is that, like me as a leader, the reason why I want you to speak up is because I need to know you're going to speak up when I'm not in the room. So I was responsible for a lot of important things, like if there was like a emergency response. So how do I going to know that you're going to push back? How do I know that if someone is trying to make a decision over here about a major contract, you're going to say, no, there's something wrong with that contract. So if you can't in front of me speak up, the reason why speaking up is so important, you don't speak up all the time, but I have to know you can speak up. So it's sort of like just being in the room isn't enough, because when I'm gone and you're my proxy, you have to stand in my shoes and make those decisions and say, oh, no, no, that's not going to work.
Right.
And I have to be able to trust you. And I won't know if I can't physically hear you speaking up. So,
Absolutely. There's a
yeah.
demonstration to that as well, right?
Yeah.
And it's just to clarify, like, you all have the minimum competency required to do the job, right? The question is, will you do a job, and will you do it in a way that we want you to?
Right. So you don't have to be the noisiest person. You don't have to be but when you speak, it needs to make sense. And when you intervene, I have to go like, I know that when I'm out of the room, they're going to intervene on my behalf and the business is in safe hands.
Uh,
So you want to demonstrate the business is in safe hands when my boss is away, and they can't do that, or my boss's boss is away. They can't do it if they don't hear you at all.
mhm,
So that's one of the reasons why just being smart isn't enough to climb the ladder. And I'm really diverse thinking about things differently. And I don't just mean because of your race or because of your gender.
mhm,
Um, Thinking differently really is critical for companies to grow. Um, the, some of the biggest innovations come from, well, all the big innovations come from someone who thought differently. So I I'm really focused on helping people at that middle manager who need to get to the executive level. Because to me, when you're at the executive level, you can hire, you fire, you set culture, you own the budgets, you create the priorities, and you want a different thinker
mhm.
leading organizations. Um, an example I use is, here's one for consumer products. So way back in the day, the detergents used to be big boxes of fluffy powder detergents. And one day they came out really small and compact.
Mhm.
And it went big globally because of Procter and Gamble, a US company. But Procter and Gamble got it from our Japanese counterparts.
Yeah.
So, and that came because the Japanese, they don't have cars. They they
Space.
they don't have space, right? They needed something compact. Their washers were smaller. They wanted to save money. So they're because they thought differently about it, they created this compact detergent. It takes a global company to scale it globally so people think it's from P&G, but it came from a different need. So that's why I'm saying different thinking is critical. Walmart created a new segment because their ERG for neurodiverse shop employees in their stores said, what if we from 8 to 9 in some stores dim the lights,
Hmm.
um, turn the TVs off,
Hmm.
put the music down? And now mothers are coming in saying, oh my gosh, I took my daughter all the way to the end of the back of the store, which I was never able to do. She picked her own toy.
Uh-huh.
Where's that woman going to shop now? Target or Walmart?
Yeah.
That is the beauty of a different thinker. And we need more people like that leading organizations.
That's so important. And I think we have to value what we have to say and again, present it like it's valuable in order for it to be able to be heard. And even if we're not trying to, move up in our career, Rebecca, why is this still important? Let's say I'm like, I don't want to get promoted, what would you say to that person?
That your idea is still important. And it's important because you who doesn't want to feel valued for the contribution that they make,
Yeah.
or that you sharing your contribution and your voice is a role model that inspires someone else. So you might not want to climb the ladder, but you make it safe for someone else to do it.
Hmm.
Because you talk about that ability to speak up and someone to say, hey, I've been in your shoes. I might not want to keep going up, but let me tell you how to navigate the alignment minefield that's out there.
Yeah. Now, we could talk about this probably for a few hours. We can break
Probably.
down all the skill sets and practice it. Um, but they still wouldn't be as impactful as if they had walked with you. So, share a little bit about like, in order for us to actually gain these skills, it's not about just listening to you or, watching podcasts or reading books. Like, what does it really take for us to take what we now have as a conscious skill set, like, hey, we're aware of this, into a competent skill set, like something that we can perform?
Yeah, so I would say, like when I work with people, 10 to 15% are like, "Oh, that was it. They just needed the format and they're fine."
Mhm.
Most of us are like, "Oh, that format's really good," and they try it and they're not so good at it. So, I think what's really important, what I really appreciate by working with SACE is I've taken some of my workshops and expanded them into um, a cohort program, because it's really important to take something that you've learned and apply it, um, and make mistakes. It's just like you're trying to play the piano. How do you know? How can you get better if you don't hear that off key,
Yeah.
right? How do you know that it's like anybody learning a sport? You're trying to hit that basket, you're trying to hit that backhand. You have to practice doing that. I think it's really important to take a skill, break it into tinier steps, try to apply it and to learn. So the working with SACE, when I develop my cohort programs, I always put in like a self-test. Just tell people, okay, you're going to try this, test it out versus for yourself, and then here's how you practice it with someone else. Because there's nothing like applying it in the work. And working with SACE, not just me, but other trainers, is that our goal is to have someone apply it immediately coming out of the class, but try to apply it in a way that you're learning versus just like, oh, I blew the whole thing. It's like taking small steps, applying it, learning, and then reapplying it.
Yeah, you want to have safe spaces to try things out and not feel like when you make a mistake, you blew it in a way, right? And
Yeah,
especially if this is not a skill set that you are good at, there's no way that you can self-correct or as well as be able to self analyze properly like what you're doing wrong. And I
correct.
like the sports analogy because I think a lot of times you could watch a video, you could do everything that you think you're doing. You think
Yeah.
you're shooting like Steph Curry, but you're not making baskets like Steph Curry, right? So
If only all you had to do was just watch the video of Steph Curry, there would be a lot more Steph Currys, right? And
abs-
even a Steph Curry has a coach, right? He
absolutely.
has a performance coach. So the people, like, you need to learn skills, you need coaches. And before I used to think, what do I need a coach for? You know what? To certain things, You need a little extra boost for someone to say, "Oh, I would do it a little differently."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really important. It's a really good investment. You have to do it with everybody, everything, but certain skills, yes.
I think there's actually a paradox that as you get better at something, sure, you're good at it that you weren't good at before, but then as you get better and you're trying to get incrementally better, you could almost self-correct away from the basics of what you do because you've overthought it, right? And so as you're working towards that competency, it's how do you continue to do the basic things well and build on top of it versus you're building on top of it and then you've forgotten all the basics of what you're supposed to do and what to have.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
sure, I put in the chat box a link to your cohort, and I'm going to share my screen with the page of the cohort.
Oh, perfect.
Um, Love to hear a little bit more about like as a participant, what are they going to go through, and what can they expect as they go through the program?
So this is amplify your strategic impact, and what its intention is to really, like it says, transform how you communicate, align, and influence at the senior level. So this really is designed for your high potential managers who interface a lot with senior executives and who struggle with the concept of pitching the big picture.
Mhm.
Um, and it is really helpful for people who are this happened to me, so this sounds like it might have happened to you, Jim, is that you got stuck right below that glass ceiling
Yeah.
and people keep giving you this unhelpful feedback. Be more strategic. Okay, what does that mean? Well, it means don't be tactical. What does that mean? Pitch the big picture. Well, what does that mean? Put yourself in their shoes. And you're like, okay, I don't know what that means. So it's really teaching people how to speak and position things more strategically as an executive so that executives can picture you and envision you as a strategic thought leader.
The common one I hear is like you have more executive presence, right? I'm like, what does that mean, right?
Yeah. So what I just work with people is so it's like three different, if you go down, there's like three different skills. So the first one is how to read and lead an executive audience. If you go down one more, it's like a three columns right
Yeah.
there. And then so it's like how it's 9 weeks long. So it's 3 weeks, 1 week per segment, 3 weeks per module. So, how to read and lead an executive audience. So, what is it that they're looking for? And I teach you, this is what they're looking for. So, when they say pitch the big picture, this is the format that you use. And then, how do you explain something in 10 sentences or less? So, when they say, give me the top lines, you know how to give a top line in as few as one sentence and maximum of 10 sentences. Then the next segment is how do you anticipate and overcome their objections and turn no's into yeses? So many times we overspeak because we're like, I don't know what they want. I don't know what they want. So I better tell them everything. So it's really how to pinpoint their key barrier to yes and then and be more persuasive. And then the last module is putting it all together. And I teach people how to like win their audience over with a presentation in as few as 10 slides. And I've had people be successful with 3 pictures
Mhm.
or 3 slides. So it's really how to win over an executive audience.
Now, as you're sharing this, right, I'm thinking about, okay, there are people that were curious about your topics, and so they attended not only your conference session, but like are here in the webinar. And then now we want them to learn this, and so we're showing them like this is the work that it takes
Right.
with your guidance for them to have the competency to do it. Not just the knowledge, but the competency to do it.
Correct.
Tell me about the participants that have gone through the program. Like, what kind of transformations do they take? I mean, is everybody successful, or is it just that one person in class that was able to just gain it? Like, I guess, tell the viewers that want to take this, like, what can they expect from joining the cohort in terms of
Yeah.
results?
So the thing I love about the class is it is designed for you to do like learn something and apply it immediately. I have people in every cohort who are able to like they'll tell me, "Oh my gosh, I got approval for something." I was just telling Jim earlier, man was in my class and he said, "Nobody's getting staffing. My role has been unstaffed. I got my role filled." and he was able to convince his executive to fill the role. And he learned how to anticipate what they wanted, what was probably the two things that he needed to know, and convinced him in like 30 minutes. So I have lots of examples where people are able to pitch something and win approval. I've had people pitch to their CTOs, win approval. Um, and every cohort, someone gets will tell me that they got promoted, which is super exciting for me. One
Yeah.
woman told me, I presented to my manager that we needed a new position, a new organization. She said no. And I decided I was going to pitch it again. She said no. I pitched a third time and my boss said yes. And they promoted me into the role to lead that organization. That to me is what's gratifying about learning how to speak strategically, pitch that big picture, and someone starts to see you as that strategic thought leader.
And that's a big part of the program, right? So I'm scrolling down,
Right.
like every session, you're going to give them opportunities to actually practice the skills, not
Right.
necessarily just know the skills. And I think that's a big difference in it, right? And even hearing that story of the person pitching over and over again, I mean, I think that defies a lot of maybe misconceptions or thoughts that people can come in. Like once they say no, why would I want to pitch again? And then if they said no, why would they even want to promote me, right? Like those are a lot of misconceptions that people have. It's just maybe you didn't say things clearly, and it's not about pushing your own agenda, but it's also communicating for them to see that you really have their interests at heart and
Right.
like you're really trying to help them with their goals. And you just need to do a better job of clarifying it in that way.
Yeah, or I tell them like, look, it's a journey. Persuasion is a journey. So maybe you move the it's no, but you went from here to here, maybe here to here. Oh, and then here to here. Yes. So in other words, she just realized it's just a journey. And just because she said no doesn't mean she's not more and more convinced. So you will learn the difference between explaining something and convincing someone. But everything's interactive. It's multi-industry because strategy really cuts through any industry that you're in.
Mhm.
Um, and everything I give people self-tests. So it's like if you're not with me, can you still evaluate how well you're doing on your own? Like this is a soundbite. How good is my soundbite?
Yeah, and I love what you just shared because it's not necessarily a challenge that a certain type of people face. It's like I think everyone faces it in a way, and there's some questions that a lot of people ask. But scrolling down, I love how you shared that. You know, is this something that I can join if I'm not in STEM or I'm not a
Right.
member of SACE? And absolutely, right? Because a lot of this comes back to some core principles that everybody tends to face as a challenge. It may just be more prevalent in STEM, but it's not exclusive to STEM.
Correct. And exactly. And these are people, I have people from marketing who are coming through. It's all people who are struggling to be heard or seen as a strategic thought leader by their executive leaders. And what they learn is executives, I mean, I've worked with pretty much every industry, and they all are looking for certain things in terms of margin improvement, revenue growth, asset efficiency. And when you start to speak in their language, it transcends all the different industries, and people are like, oh, I got that. It's really great. You see all these light bulbs going off.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot here, and I think sometimes, helping people to be able to qualify for this or get support on it is something that's also just as important, right? Like, we're going to teach them how to speak up and learn how to advocate for themselves, but sometimes even just getting to the class to be able to do that can be challenged. So, I wanted to first share a LinkedIn link here in the chat box for people. It's to Rebecca, your LinkedIn, where people can get connected to you. But I also strategically did it so that it's your TEDx talk that you did, which has been very popular. And Rebecca, you've been very impactful by sharing some things that I think some people just really didn't see before. I've enjoyed it, and I wanted to make sure I share that out there too. But the next tool I wanted to really share with the group is like, we created at SACE this bot. And I know a lot of times for people, like your company's probably not going to let you use this inside their firewall or inside their network. And that's okay. And I think that should be because we want you to advocate for yourself. Like you're not just doing this for your company. In fact, your company is really just probably an exercise workout studio for you to practice your leadership skills that you're going to take this anywhere and everywhere that you go. And so what I did was create this bot for SACE, and it's to help you to bridge that. So what I did here was I uploaded some sample leadership profiles, maybe a sample 360, as well as my performance review. And I wrote in here like my situation. In this case, I'm a first level manager that heard about Rebecca's talk, and I'm uploading these things, and because I'm having myself find difficulty just getting promoted, as well as I have a trajectory to want to become more of a business leader and continue to grow. I've read a lot of books, I've seen a lot of podcasts, but I still struggle. And so, how would Rebecca's Amplify cohort help me to be able to learn about myself, overcome these challenges, and also better contribute to the team? And so by putting this in the bot, what it did was it helped me to really understand the documents that I received. Because I think a lot of times as employees, we get 360 evals, we get year-end performance reviews, and maybe we took an assessment of DISC or SDI, or what animal are you? And we don't know what to do with this information. And I think sometimes we feel like it's our responsibility, and it really is, but we don't know how to be leadership development people. We're maybe scientists, or maybe engineers, or maybe product managers. And so what this tool is to help you to do is to have a leadership development coach help you to be able to communicate these things. So the first section is helping you to understand what are those documents saying in light of your goals. The second one is helping understand why is Rebecca's cohort a fit? What specifically are the leadership skill sets that she's going to develop in you, and based upon the evals and the year-end review, like what is it that it saw as being lacking? And these are the things that it will help you to amplify. And then from it, this is the rationale on why the company would want you to take this and help you to communicate this in a way that they would help understand the business case for you being a part of this cohort. So then I asked it to create an email letter. Like maybe this is something that you can copy paste to your manager, or in some cases, you could even ask the bot to modify it. Or what's a 2 minute, as Rebecca was saying, what's a 2 minute quick blurb that I can say very quickly and shortly to get my manager interested in me wanting to develop, and then setting up time to go over this in a little bit more depth. But the goal is to help you create that bridge between where you are now and getting to Rebecca's class so you can self-sustain yourself, but giving you some talking points, and also, again, getting you a leadership development coach to help you through that process. And as you use this, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to me as well. And I could more than happy to walk you through this. But more than anything, I hope you'll take advantage of these tools. If your challenges of being heard and being seen, and really being utilized and valued is a challenge, then you should look at Rebecca's cohort and see how it's going to help you to showcase not only your life's work and maybe the topics and the skill sets that you've worked on, but also seeing the value that it has to the people that you're working for. As we wrap up, Rebecca, any other thoughts or words that come to mind?
Join the cohort if you are someone who always ends up in the weeds. That's what I tell people. Like that's a really good. Or if you really struggle, why don't they? I don't know how to explain the strategic or commercial value of my ideas, and you're trying to pitch up, and I don't understand how to pitch the big picture. That this is who it's designed for, and you don't have to be that person trying to get promoted. But being a high potential manager who's talking a lot with senior leaders, this is who it's designed to really help.
That's perfect. And hopefully, if any of you that are here, Tamarja, Vanessa, Isa, Alan, Sean, if you'd like to ask questions, feel free to raise your hand. I'd love to give you some time with Rebecca. But for now, we'll go ahead and end the recording and give you guys a chance to speak off the recording if you like as well. So thank you, Rebecca, for your time and being here. And we truly hope that more people can take advantage of this great skill set that they can do to be heard and be seen more often.